One morning in August 2016, a woman grew uneasy when her daughter failed to arrive as planned with her young sons, with her calls and messages going unanswered. When she arrived at their home, something was off. The curtains were drawn, both cars were in the driveway, and there was an unsettling silence that wrapped around the house. Approaching the back door, a note taped inside caught her eye, written in familiar handwriting, instructing her not to enter the house, but to call the police first. In that moment, she knew something terrible had happened. What was about to be discovered would unveil an unimaginable horror that would ripple through the entire community. This is the shocking case of the Hawe family. "40-year-old Alan Hawe and 39-year-old Clodagh Hawe both worked in the education sector. Alan Hawe, originally from Wingap in southwestern County Kilkenny, Ireland, served as the deputy principal at Castlerahan National School, located near Barconney, where the family lived. Clodagh Hawe was a teacher at Orristown National School, situated southeast of Kells in northern County Meath, Ireland. Clodagh was originally from Mount Nugent, a village in the southern part of County Cavan, just a few miles southwest of Ballyjamesduff. The couple had 3 sons, 13-year-old Liam, 11-year-old Niall, and 6-year-old Ryan. On the evening of Sunday, August 28, 2016, everything seemed perfectly ordinary to Mary Cole, Clodagh's mother. They enjoyed tea, biscuits, and conversation together in the kitchen, while Clodagh's children watched TV in the living room. Clodagh mentioned that she planned to drop Niall and Ryan off at Mary's early the next morning since Liam had school. She reassured Mary not to worry if she arrived a bit late, as Clodagh didn't have students to teach that day. Before heading out, Mary wished Alan well as he prepared to return to school after the summer break, and Alan thanked her for the biscuits as well. In this moment, however, Mary had no idea what fate had in store for her. The next morning, on August 29, 2016, Mary Cole grew worried when her daughter Clodagh didn't arrive with her 2 youngest sons, Niall and Ryan, as planned. Unable to reach Clodagh or her husband Alan by phone or text, Mary decided to drive to their home at Oakdean Downs in Barconney. When she arrived, she noticed both family cars parked in the driveway and the curtains in the sitting room and bedrooms were drawn, an unusual and alarming sign. Clodagh would normally have contacted her if she were running late. Mary's first thought was that her daughter and grandchildren might have been affected by carbon monoxide poisoning. Approaching the back door with her key, she saw a note taped inside, instructing not to enter and to call the police. Recognizing Alan's handwriting, Mary's fears deepened, suspecting something terrible had happened. Mary immediately called emergency services at around 10:40 a.m., then went to her neighbor, Edith Harrigan, to share her fears that Alan might have harmed her daughter. Officer Alan Ratcliffe arrived shortly afterward, and using Mary's key, entered the home. Inside, he found Clodagh Hawe's lifeless body on the couch in the sitting room. She was dressed in pajamas and had suffered severe head injuries, with a knife and a small axe being found nearby on the floor. Alan Hawe's body was found in the hallway, where he had taken his own life. Upstairs, Garda Ratcliffe discovered Liam and Niall Hawe in separate bedrooms, each with throat injuries indicating their tragic deaths. In the third bedroom, Garda Ratcliffe found Ryan Hawe, also deceased, with a knife placed on his pillow. In the master bedroom, jewelry and jewelry boxes were arranged neatly on the bed. Ratcliffe then alerted his colleague about the 5 bodies inside and joined her and Mary Cole outside, where Mary waited anxiously. He then informed Mary that there were no survivors in the house. Detectives also discovered various items including documents, a sealed envelope with a letter, and a note on the kitchen table, some of which were stained with blood. It was later revealed that Alan Hawe's right palm print was found on the blood-stained hatchet at the crime scene. Inside the envelope was a letter Alan had written after killing Clodagh while their sons were still asleep. The victim's family, who were kept from viewing the letter by the Gardaí or the Irish police for 16 months, believed that Alan wrote it in 2 parts, beginning after he murdered his wife and completing it after killing his sons. Alan first attacked Clodagh, who was seated on the couch in the sitting room, using a hatchet he had retrieved from the kitchen. He then sat at the kitchen table to write his murder-suicide letter and sealed it in an envelope. Afterward, he took a kitchen knife upstairs, where he killed his 3 sleeping sons. Following their deaths, He returned to the envelope and added more words on its outside. During the investigation, authorities discovered that Alan Hawe had carefully planned his actions. He took the axe from the shed and arranged the furniture so that Clodagh would have her back turned when he entered the sitting room. At that moment, Clodagh was peacefully browsing holiday options online and drinking tea. Alan then approached her from behind and launched a brutal attack with the axe, stabbing her in the back and nearly severing her hand as she tried to defend herself. After killing Clodagh, Alan sat down to write the letter, leaving the axe and knife on the floor. He then headed upstairs with a different knife. Alan knelt on Liam's chest, cutting his windpipe to silence him and prevent any cries. Niall, who shared the room with Liam, likely didn't wake right away because Liam couldn't make a sound, though he did have defensive wounds on his hands, suggesting he had tried to resist. Alan then carried out the same brutal act on Niall before moving to Ryan's room. Ryan, the youngest and smallest, suffered an especially violent attack. Alan used a sawing motion on him, according to evidence presented during the investigation. He then covered each of the boys with a duvet and left the knife on Ryan's pillow. Afterward, Alan returned downstairs, wrote more in his letter, transferred money, and organized paperwork, all while his family lay dead around him. In the early hours after the killings, Hawe transferred €2,500 from the joint account into his own. Reflecting on the days that followed, Clodagh's sister Jacqueline and her mother Mary Cole expressed their frustration at the lack of immediate support and guidance. They recalled how, on the Monday after the murders, they struggled to connect with anyone who could provide help or answers, learning more from media coverage than from official sources. It was only 16 months later, 2 weeks before the inquest, that they finally received Alan's letter. This letter revealed chilling details about Alan's mindset before the murders, including how he rearranged the furniture to execute his plans. The note began with, "All the good stuff we did, I was really into it. But I think there was some sort of psychosis that made me enjoy that, yet in the next moment, I was the complete opposite." He then apologized for his actions, saying, "I'm sorry for how I murdered them all, but I simply had no other way. I'm sure I've gotten lots of what I wanted to say properly, some badly. I know to many I was so nice to them, but they never knew the real me." He ended with, "God bless you all. Be good to your families. I just don't know what it was that I was so normal yet so dark and no one could see it." Initially, the Irish press portrayed Alan Hawe as a highly regarded figure in his community. He was seen as the head of a church-going family, a committed vice principal at a local national school, an avid sports fan, and a former teenage handball champion. He was described as the epitome of normalcy, a wonderful father, and a kind and decent person who had an innate desire to care for those around him. These positive portrayals created an image of Hawe as a loving and well-adjusted family man, making his subsequent actions all the more shocking. In June 2016, however, Hawe's carefully cultivated image began to unravel when he was caught viewing sexually explicit media on a school computer, an incident believed to have taken place at the school where he worked. Alan had accessed 97% of the adult content through his school laptop, with some also viewed on his phone, all of which he kept hidden from his wife Clodagh. Mary Cole recalled a conversation with Clodagh in February 2016, where Clodagh shared that Alan had admitted to watching adult content. This revelation put a strain on their relationship, prompting Hawe to begin attending counseling sessions every Tuesday evening. Although Clodagh reassured her mother that everything was under control, Mary could sense her daughter's underlying anxiety. Initially, Hawe's counseling focused on his addiction to watching adult content, but over time, it shifted to address problems related to his work at the school. However, after this incident, Hawe's life began to spiral out of control. Alan's troubles reflected an internal conflict. His double life, which appeared outwardly normal while masking inner turmoil, likely played a role in his psychological decline. But what drove him to commit the murders? Detectives quickly found that Hawe had no history of mental health issues and had neither been referred to nor sought mental health care. In the days leading up to the killings, those who knew him saw no obvious changes in his mood, behavior, or mental state. However, the lack of visible signs did not necessarily mean Hawe wasn't experiencing significant emotional distress. At the Cavan Coroner's Court, psychiatry professor Harry Kennedy shared his findings based on thorough documentation of Alan Hawe's mental health. Professor Kennedy's report was based on records from Hawe's GP, counselor, and his suicide note, as he did not directly interact with Mr. Hawe. According to Professor Kennedy's evaluation, Hawe had been struggling with somatic anxieties since 2008, which involved concerns about his physical health that eventually became overwhelming obsessions. These anxieties were coupled with obsessive thoughts, moral doubts, and intense feelings of guilt, all of which pointed to a major depressive disorder. Professor Kennedy noted that by the time of the murder-suicide, Hawe's depression had worsened into a severe episode, which included psychotic symptoms. He emphasized that such severe mental illness greatly impairs judgment, suggesting that Hawe's actions were influenced by his compromised mental state. Alan had confided in his general practitioner about feeling run down, experiencing sleep difficulties, and even using bleach to treat a toenail issue. Despite his mental health concerns, the doctor had only addressed his physical problems during their 5-year doctor-patient relationship. In counseling sessions with David McConnell from March to June 2016, Hawe spoke of ongoing struggles and shared that he had felt down in his 20s, but this had improved when he began working. His main goal in therapy was to restore his family life to its previous state, revealing his deep attachment to his roles as a father and husband. During their final session on June 21, 2016, Hawe seemed visibly stressed but was open about his emotional difficulties. He confessed to feeling the burden of upholding a perfect image in the community, revealing his fear of shame and imperfection. The session ended on a deeply emotional note, with Hawe breaking down in tears. Throughout their sessions, confidentiality was never violated, and Hawe stopped attending therapy after that day. On the same day as his last counseling appointment, Alan also saw his practitioner about his toenail issue. He also mentioned having trouble sleeping due to a conflict with a colleague at work, which left him feeling isolated. Despite these concerns, Alan did not request a sick note. The practitioner observed that he was preparing for the end of the school year and looking forward to a holiday in Italy. She prescribed 10 sleeping pills for his short-term insomnia and advised him to avoid further conflict at work, suggesting he return if his situation didn't improve. The practitioner noted that Hawe seemed clear, coherent, and focused, displaying normal behavior without any signs of agitation. She found no indications of despair or hopelessness, and it appeared his main source of stress was the work-related conflict. He seemed optimistic about his upcoming holiday. However, she was unaware that Hawe was also seeing a counselor and had an appointment on the same day. In one part of his note, Alan Hawe wrote, "I cannot let them face a life without me and the shame they would have to bear that their father had committed suicide. I have wanted to kill myself for a long time now, and I just could not bear the thought of leaving my mess and the anger and rejection that Clodagh and the boys would have to live with forever." Suicidal individuals often feel that they are burdensome to those around them, thinking that their loved ones would be better off if they were no longer there. Sympathy was expressed to both the Cole and Hawe families by the police, the coroner, legal representatives, and the jury. After about 10 minutes of deliberation, the jury returned their verdicts. For Alan Hawe, the coroner recommended a verdict of death by self-infliction. Following the coroner's guidance, the jury deliberated and returned verdicts that aligned with the recommendations. The inquest was concluded on December 19, 2017. In the aftermath of the murders, women's rights organisations in Ireland, such as the Women's Aid and the National Women's Council, criticised the Irish media for what they saw as excessive sympathy toward Alan Hawe, failing to focus on how Clodagh and her children were ruthlessly and methodically killed by Alan in a premeditated act. Clodagh's sister and mother were also reportedly burdened with €50,000 in debt due to the legal expenses incurred while seeking the release of the documents. They also condemned the lack of support from both the state and charitable organisations for their family, as well as for the families of murder victims across Ireland. While the motives behind Alan Hawe's shocking actions remain deeply unsettling, they point to an inner turmoil masked by his carefully maintained image as a dedicated family man and respected community member. Tragically, instead of seeking help or opening up to his loved ones about the struggles that haunted him, Alan chose a path that led to unimaginable devastation for everyone involved. His actions left a community reeling, grieving not only the unimaginable loss but also the stark contrast between the man they thought they knew and the horror that unfolded. It is sad and unfortunate what all the victims faced against this monster. As we reflect on this heart-wrenching tale, our thoughts are with the victims whose lives were tragically cut short and the loved ones they left behind. If you found this video compelling, be sure to like and subscribe to our channel and check out our other videos. Thank you for watching.